everyone. Welcome. I'm here with Laine and here to introduce her. So let us know that you are here and you can hear us. Oh, great. I'm seeing some reactions. Feel free to use the chat to say hello. Let us know who you are and where you're joining from. And I will share a little bit about Laine and then turn it over to her. I'll be monitoring the chat. I'll throw some things into Q&A. You can also use the Q&A feature to ask your questions, upvote them, etc. And I think it's going to be a wonderful session. I, for one, am really looking forward to it. So Laine, if you don't know her already, she's an active participant in the TLDC community, transitioned to the field of learning and development in 2020. Since then, she has collaborated with various organizations, serving as both a full-time employee and a contracted instructional designer. She's passionate about fostering well-being, self-development, and uplifting others. And outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her two teenagers and indulging in documentaries and self-help literature. So please give us your top book recommendations at the end, Laine. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Clea, for that introduction. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I am super excited to be presenting to my people, my teacher friends and family. So I'm going to go ahead and share. I see a lot of claps. All right, good. So my presentation today is all about finding your jam in L&D. And of course, I had to be funny about it and put a piece of bread with some jam on it. But really what I mean by that is finding what makes you happy, finding what brings you joy, and where you feel very fulfilled in your work in learning and development. So just a little bit about me. Clea did share some about me. I'll just give you a little bit more. I was a teacher from 2005 to 2020. Before I was a teacher, I wanted to be a teacher, but I ended up going in the direction of advertising, sales, marketing. In community college, I had a professor who, she asked me what I wanted to do. I told her I wanted to go into teaching, and she's like, no. I see you more in marketing and, creative writing, because she liked my writing skills. And so I was impressionable, very much respected her. And so I said, oh, maybe she's right. I guess I should, go in that direction. And so I did. And I did have a lot of fun. I wrote commercials, I wrote radio ads, I did a little bit of print, but ultimately it just, while that side was fun, there were some other things about it that weren't fun. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to being a teacher. So that's what I did. And so I did that from 2005 to 2020. And yes, absolutely, writing is definitely key in instructional design and L&D. And so it's kind of funny because it's kind of come full circle to that point, which is, really exciting. So my areas were K through 8, ELA, I taught civics, I taught social studies, I taught history, and I also taught gifted. Then in 2019, I decided that I wanted to leave education. There were various reasons, many reasons, but I was ready. And at that point, I decided for me personally, the best choice was to get a master's degree. So I went into a master's program, kind of went through that pretty quick because that was a lot of work and I was ready to be out. And so I graduated in 2020. And since that time, I was very fortunate, landed a role pretty quickly, and I've worked in corporate and higher ed. I've done quite a bit with higher ed, but I've also done corporate. I've worked in insurance. I've worked in software and technology and leadership development and all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm really excited about, where I'm heading as an instructional designer and learning consultant. And since that time, I've also just become a freelancer and have my own business, which I absolutely love. I love the autonomy about that. So I could talk a little more about that later. And then I just put coffee because I just love coffee. So no sugar though. I don't take sugar in my coffee anymore. And that was really hard to give up, but worth it. Okay, so when beginning your search into learning and development, do you ever feel like a plastic bag in the wind, right? That Katy Perry song. Yes, Katy Perry. And hopefully I don't give any of you, an earworm and put that song in your head, but this is the concept that came to my mind when leaving one career field and going into another. It's like, where do I go? Where do I start? Where do I begin? What do I like? And so if you don't have direction, you can feel like a plastic bag in the wind. And if you allow yourself to kind of be blown around, you'll kind of just stick to, I love Friends. I should have put that on my About Me. I love Friends. You might just blow into something and just stick onto it, right? And so the first thing that you capture in your job search, you might stick to it if you don't have direction. So for me, I feel like what's really important is to have some intention. By the way, that's my word for 2024, intention, and I also added clarity because I think they go hand in hand. Really getting clear on what it is that you want, where you want to head, what your goals are, and really just outlining for yourself all of the things that make you you, and being clear about that, and then being intentional with taking that information and then doing something with it. So first and foremost, intention and clarity when finding your jam in L&D. Yeah, please share your word. So one of the things I did was I know what I've done, and I would love to share with you, but I also felt it was important to talk to some folks in the field and get some of their feedback. So just a little background, this is a breakout of the folks who were so generous in giving their time and sharing their opinions and feedback and advice. And then out of them, 75% felt that they found their best fit in L&D. So that's pretty cool. That's really exciting because it's just nice to hear from people who have been where you are and hear their stories and how they were able to find their best fit for them. So I'll start with sharing what makes you happy in your role. So just giving you a little feedback from what they said. One of my questions was, what makes you happy in your L&D role? And it was all anonymous, so I couldn't even tell you who said what. But this person said, getting to do what I'm good at, which includes writing, consulting on best practices, coaching, building courses in LMS, and sometimes being a SME. And what I like about this answer is that this person obviously has multiple interests, and they're able to fulfill all of those with their role in L&D. I enjoy providing consultative advice to small companies. I find the L&D strategy work more enjoyable than the instructional design work. And this is a good point because in L&D, there's really it's so broad in the type of work that you can do. So this person here to me really seems like they are into big ideas and maybe connecting how concepts and teams work together to influence and propel their organization forward. And this individual says, working with others and watching our learners enjoy what we delivered. There really is a moment of delight. I've seen it. And I loved this quote because that's, as teachers and educators, like we live for the aha moment, right? We love that when our students make the connections and, we're able to see it, like all the stuff that we have to do as educators really kind of almost makes it worth all of the while when we see that aha moment. Delight is a good word. I like that too. So the flexibility and freedom to be myself, but also to design and develop interactive and engaging learning opportunities for others. I love that I get to work with so many different SMEs with different backgrounds on different topics. This is what I love about contract work so much. There's never a dull moment and it never feels repetitive. And I didn't write this, but I feel like I could have written this quote right here because I feel the same way. I get to work with so many different people. I love working with subject matter experts because they are very passionate. They're so passionate about their topic that, they typically made a whole career around it. And so it's very exciting to work with someone who gives off that kind of energy. And, yes, it's true. Sometimes you have to kind of reel them in a little bit and focus them on, the learning objectives and the purpose of why we're creating what it is we're creating. But at the same time, as long as you build that rapport with them, then you're both working towards the same goal. And it's just exciting to work with someone who's passionate. Okay, flexibility, autonomy, respect, being part of a cohesive team with fantastic culture. I feel like for my educator friends, we do have some autonomy in terms of what we do inside of our classroom. But in terms of what happens outside of the classroom, not so much, right? And that was one of the reasons why I needed to leave education, was because I saw a lot of problems that needed some resolution. And for myself, I'm a natural problem solver. As a matter of fact, like, I have to be very intentional about not giving advice where it's not asked for because I do that. So I'm working on that. But aside from that, I didn't feel like I could help solve a lot of the systemic issues, and that was really tough. And then, of course, respect in so many different areas that we don't, as educators, always get in the classroom. So for you, I'd like you to think about what would make you happy. And in doing that, what could you talk for hours and hours about? What are you so passionate about that you could just make a whole presentation and just talk about it all day long? And please feel free to share in the chat. And another thing to think about, what gives you energy? And on the opposite side, what drains your energy? And it's not necessarily dealing with certain types of individuals and personalities and things like that. It's actually the type of work, because as you do your research in the field of learning and development, you'll find that there's a lot of different types of things that you can do. And some of them requires a lot of like ideation and thinking and writing. And some of it will require, like development work, for example. Some of that can be very, I don't want to say tedious, but, like you're really working with a piece of technology all day long, or you might be editing videos, or, just creating different assets for a course. So even those things can drain your energy if it's not something that you love doing. And so for myself personally, I do enjoy, I'm multi-passionate. I love doing all of those things, but I don't want to do one of those things 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I really need something that I can be flexible. I can do a little writing sometimes. I can do some video editing and development. I can do some strategy work. And that's really, I just love that about L&D, is that really have that flexibility. And not just because I'm a freelancer and I get to choose the types of work that I enjoy doing. I also feel like if you're an individual contributor within an organization, you can absolutely have the same thing. It's just a matter of how can you communicate that to your team, to your leadership, and what can you do to take initiative in your role to make some of those things happen. And so just to dig a little deeper, asking them why. why they love what they do. And so we have, I love the consultative work because it's more strategic than design development. I found L&D strategy more collaborative as well, making it a better fit. Before L&D consulting, I worked solely in e-learning, design, and development, and it felt lonely quite often. And that's a really good point, because in some roles, it can feel a little lonely, especially if you're working all day long on storyline project, for example. And for this person, that felt lonely to them. But for someone else, that might be like, yes, I'm so excited about that. I would love to work alone all day long. So you really have to think about what gives you energy, right? And not just from a perspective of, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. There's just more to that, right? I fancy myself as an introvert, but I do like people and I like interacting with people, just not all day long, all the time. This person found a full-time corporate role that allows them to be collaborative, working with SMEs, and they enjoy contract and freelance. I typically have contract positions in higher ed, in the higher ed world, to still scratch that educator itch. I still feel that pull towards the classroom, but I can meet that need through my higher ed work. I also love being able to never stop learning as I interact with so many different college courses. This is what I love about L&D, is that there's so many opportunities to work as needed in addition to full-time work. Such a good point. There's so much availability to take on extra contract work if that's what you desire. And honestly, that's how I kind of worked my way into freelance, was taking on extra roles outside of my regular full-time job, because I'm like, what else is out there? There's more things that I know I'm interested in, and so that's how I personally found more types of work, was kind of just putting it out there in terms of contract work. I was a teacher prior to this and really enjoyed taking content and creating a pathway to learning from that content. This role allows me to be cerebral and then tap into my creative side when it comes to developing out the content. I love being faced with complexity and given the green light to use all my creative juices to make huge, complex information digestible for people to learn it. I love the research aspect of it too. I was a science teacher with a science degree, and I'm drawn to puzzling out the why and how of things. What makes things tick, or why aren't they ticking, and how do I get them to tick again? And just a great explanation from this person about why they love what they do. Yeah. I love what they said, the cerebral side, and developing out the content. So cool. And so for you, think about what drives you and what are your natural talents. Now, I also believe just because it's not a natural talent doesn't mean that you can't do it and that you wouldn't be good at it. Sometimes you just have to work a little bit at it, find those opportunities to use that muscle, right? And have the opportunity to work towards something that is interesting to you. But to get going, just think about, what drives you. And I started putting some ideas here. If you like idea generation, problem solving, coming up with new ways of doing things, that could be one direction. If you love deadlines and you love organization and structure and processes, there's roles that you can do to work in that area. And if you like facilitation and you like training and you like the delivery side of things, you can have that too. And there's nothing that says you have to just pick one of these. You can do multiple of these in the same role. Same, Clea. I've also worked on public speaking. Yeah, it's, for some people, it's very natural, and some of us have to work on it, and that's okay. So, what's your best advice for someone exploring L&D and finding their best fit? And thank you. And this individual says, take just about any project you can to gain experience. See if you can get a mentor, build your network, volunteer for things. And what I want to say about this is, yes, you can take any project to gain experience. That's one way of going about it. And honestly, I did a lot of that too. I was like, okay, I mean, the only way I'm going to learn is I need to just jump in and I need to try and do. And that did give me a lot of perspective on I don't really like this, but I do really like this. And so for me, I found that I just felt a lot of gratitude toward being able to experience different things. Even experiences that weren't so great turned out to be great because from what I gained from them was invaluable. And finding and getting a mentor, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had several mentors along the way that have just given me a sounding board, just being someone I can talk to and ask for advice. And, they've been there before. And so they absolutely can share and see things from a different perspective, like an outsider looking in. So, yes, if you can find a mentor, totally agree with that. And absolutely build your network. It may be easy to take the first role that you land, but do your homework on the organization and its culture to see if it's a fit for you. Ask about the work expectations. Do they need you to be available after hours, for example? If you land a position that doesn't align with your values, you'll end up being unhappy and on the job hunt all over again. Yes, yes, so true. I see a lot of claps in my screen over here. But totally agree with this. And that goes back to the plastic bag in the wind, right? If you're like, I just need a job. I need to hurry up and land a role without doing your homework. This can actually very well happen. So definitely do your homework and don't be afraid to pass on the things that don't sound like a good fit for you, because I promise you that there is a good fit out there. You just have to find it. And you really don't want to, what's that saying, jump from the frying pan to the fire, something like that. You don't want to go from one situation where you're, unhappy and not feeling valued, and then just jumping into to the same thing, because you can experience burnout and workplace trauma in any role in any organization. So that being intentional and having clarity, very key. Definitely growth mindset, definitely. So don't be afraid to show your true self in your portfolio. That's what they want to see. They want to see who you are. If you're creative and quirky, do it. Be who you are, because if you hide it from the beginning, you're going to have to hide it forever. And that's not really a way to live. You want to be authentic. You want to feel like you can be who you are, psychologically safe in the workplace, so that when you show up, you give your best self and you are an amazing contributor. And not just for the company, for yourself too, for feeling that autonomy, right? And feeling like a sense of purpose to what you're doing. Very key. She's just talking about her, I'm saying her, I don't know. Finding your best fit, think about what your interests are. Do you like to work with many people? Do you prefer working alone? We did hear that before. Do you want a full-time job, or do you want to try contracting? And it depends on your individual circumstance as well. Tap into your transferable skills. We always hear this, right? As far as like educators making a transition into L&D. You haven't done that before, but so what? What intrinsic skills do you have that you can apply toward a role? So here's a good example I was thinking of. Like I mentioned earlier, I taught gifted, and in my program, in my county, in my state, we had a lot of behavior problems in the gifted program. And so I think my educator friends will know that if you're good at managing and handling behavior problems, guess what? You get more because you're good at it. So what can we learn from that? Like, what could I learn from that that I can take forward into my next role? Well, maybe that means that I'm empathetic, right? I'm good at listening and understanding what someone else is going through. And maybe I try new things all the time because I was always creating new behavior charts, right? Communicating with parents, building rapport with difficult students. So there's absolutely transferable skills from that particular experience that I do bring to my roles in L&D. And of course, network, absolutely. Do I feel energized working with people face to face or being on my own? Do I need some predictability or can I deal with a lot of variety? Good questions. What will be the balance of design versus development? So this is when you accept that role in, let's say it's an instructional designer, there's different types of responsibilities that you'll have in that role. And so designing is more like writing learning objectives, like the needs analysis. Why are we creating this training? And then designing the program around all of those elements, where the development now, you're taking what has been designed and now you're creating it into whatever it is that you're creating. Maybe it's a program, maybe it's a video, maybe it's some interaction, maybe it's a job aid, an infographic. It could be many different things. But the development is taking those ideas and making them concrete. And that's not for everybody. So it's important to know what your ratio is going to be. And other roles on the teams, like LMS administrator, that's the learning management system. What this person really does is it's a little more technical. They load courses into the learning management system. They track them. They send the emails to remind people that they have to take their course. And of course, those are not the only responsibilities, but those are like the common ones. And then doing some future forecasting, I guess, which I feel like is not something that a lot of people do. But where do you want to be in 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And what do you envision your life being like in L&D? What do you think it's going to be like? And how is that different from what you're doing now? Like I said, you might be going from one thing that you don't like into something else that you don't like. So it's really key to kind of ask yourself those questions and network, right? Find people who are doing the things that you would like to do or you think that you would like to do. Get a mentor, definitely. And ask them, what was your career trajectory like? Where did you start? How did you end up where you are today? And see if you can visualize yourself doing that too. And why do you want to take this leap? Why do you want to leave what you're doing to go into something else? One thing that I've learned is boundary setting. And I'll be the first to tell you, I did not have good boundaries. If someone asked me to do it, I just, okay, they had to give me a good reason. But if the reason was sound, then I would just do it. And so I didn't have a lot of boundaries when I was an educator. And if I was to go back into that field, I would 100% establish boundaries and recognize that I'm one person. Like I can't, realistically do everything that you're asking me to. So I think I would push the envelope a little bit and I would push back. Now, I also know how education works. So, that's a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, if it's just a matter of establishing boundaries and saying no, I'm not going to do this activity after school. No, I'm not going to deliver this PD. No, I'm not going to, whatever it is. And just reclaim your, just reclaim boundaries, your life. Like say what you want and do more of what you want not what other people want you to do. That's what I want to say. And then where do you see yourself going in this career? What is a career path like? Will you like that career path? So yeah, just some things to think about as you're thinking of the future. So I think it's really easy to say, right now, this is all I can think about right now. I got to get out right now. But what happens after? I think that's really important. And if you could save someone time by learning from your mistakes and your experiences, what wisdom would you share? So we have a couple things in here that might be a little controversial, but I mean, it's real feedback, you know? This individual said, I wasn't impressed with my certification program through the university. No hands-on. I wish I would have waited and asked more questions. I would say for my personal experience, my master's program, it did have some hands-on, but I really just don't think you can replace real world experience. You really, like, you need that, you know, whether that's projects that you take on just because you want to build your portfolio, or projects that you volunteer on, or what have you. So I definitely agree with this. And when I went for my master's program, I don't know if there were as many resources available then as there are now. So for sure, there's a lot of things out there. Abby, I'm just reading your comment. Do it for the kids? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, heard that one all the time. Someone else says, don't just take the first thing that comes along. Go with your gut. If a job doesn't feel right, don't do it. Don't feel obligated to take every opportunity to interview with a recruiter if they reach out. But remember, interviews are good experiences for future opportunities. 100%. It's that practice. You know, it's a practice of speaking the L&D language, right? And using it in conversation and explaining how your skills transfer, and just repeating that process is really good. Keep a log of what you do and your accomplishments in whatever role you have, and make sure it lives somewhere outside of your company's intranet, just in case. As you progress more in your career, it's harder to keep track of what you've done. Oh yes, I totally agree with this. Sometimes if I'm speaking with a potential client, they'll ask me, what have you done in terms of like this type of work or in this type of industry? And I know I have. And so it's like, you have to like rack my brain a little bit, because it could have been a couple of years ago. So this is a good practice. And this person says, I never took the time to build my network and keep in touch with folks until the company I worked with for 8 years closed. Take that time. Yeah. You know, it's not always about what someone can help you with or someone can do for you. It's just a matter of having folks that you have things in common with, you know, that you could just learn from, and just reach out and share something in common. You know, there's no one in my family I can talk to about instructional design and learning and development. They're like, okay. So I need people who understand like my passion for it. As you begin to follow the LinkedIn celebrities, take everything with a grain of salt. Yeah, this one is a little bit controversial, like I mentioned earlier. And that's true with everything, right? So, and trust your gut, trust your intuition. If something maybe sounds too good to be true, what's that saying, right? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So don't jump into anything, just take your time, you know, do your research. Trust your network and connections. If you go into a company knowing people beforehand, very helpful. And this person was lucky that their network extended into the organizations they've been a part of and always had familiar faces. Your network is invaluable. Okay, this one's a little long. Figure out where you want to go first, then start making the steps. And this person applied to all different kinds of positions with a resume that wasn't tailored to those positions and no real experience. I didn't take the time to dig deep because I was desperate for an exit, right? That plastic bag. When I wasn't getting any calls, I felt defeated and thought I could never do anything else, that I was stuck. Once I nailed down exactly what I wanted to do, I set a goal and made the plan that would prepare me to actually leave. For me, it involved enrolling in a program that might not work for everyone financially or time-wise, so I'm not fully recommending you follow that path. That was the one that worked for my needs. Identify what things you need to be successful. Do you need someone to write out a roadmap and guide you through these steps with a community? How about a boot camp or advanced degree? That might be best for you. Do you prefer to work at your own pace? And do you enjoy self-discovery? Watching YouTube videos, social media groups, reading books, and be reflective. So it's really taking an individualized approach. Just what will work for you, your life currently, and what you have going on. Don't be afraid to speak up. You know your field, you know what you need, speak up. That's another theme I feel like I've seen in these comments, is to speak up and don't be afraid to be who you are. Authenticity. Oopsie. All right, so types of roles that I just kind of came up with a few. You've got some training and facilitation, LMS management, curriculum design, change management, enablement, onboarding. There's so many different subfields when it comes to learning and development that, like the sky's the limit. And so I invite you to connect with me, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Laine Istvan, and reach out if you have questions, if you want to bounce ideas off of me. Like I said, I'm open, I'm here to help, and I love my teacher friends. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Lainey. That was an amazing session. The chat was on fire. Everyone, please give a round of applause with those little emoji reactions at the bottom. I like clicking the button as quickly as I can. And I will go ahead and move us to Q&A. So I'll go ahead and ask the questions out loud. And my pal Abby in the background, who's done a fantastic job helping out so much in this event, will go ahead and mark those answered. So we'll keep them organized. So the first question, the one with the most upvotes, and it's a question that I still have, honestly, is from Vandana. Is it better to be a specialist in the beginning to get your feet wet, or to take a broader approach when transitioning to L&D? What's your take on that, Lainey?
Oh, goodness. I feel like it really kind of depends on the person, and it depends on their personality. I've seen a lot of information on LinkedIn, especially about niching, niching down and finding your aligned, what it is that you want to focus on in terms of your roles and your values. So I think that that's very valuable to do that. But I've also seen where people have taken a broader approach as well, and that's worked for them. So one thing I will say is get very clear, right? Get very clear on what your interests are, what you enjoy, what gives you energy. And if you can focus into that, and maybe you have a specific subfield that you enjoy, maybe you like insurance, or you like sales, and gravitate into that direction and focus your areas on that direction. So
yeah,
I don't know if that fully answers the question, but
yeah, and there's some great advice in the chat there too about small organizations and how you might not be able to find a specialty there. So yeah, experiment, but love your advice 100%. There. The next question that I'll ask comes from Mark C. What are examples of L&D specific roles or titles? Like, what terms should you be searching for?
So I have a recommendation. If you're on LinkedIn, you should absolutely follow Sarah Canestra of the Overnight Trainer. She's got so much amazing information that really leans into this. But specifically, you can look for what everyone looks for as an instructional designer, right? Like that's pretty broad, and you can look at that. But you've also got learning experience designer, which is very similar. Um, you can look into onboarding specialist, sales enablement. I have a whole list here. Organizational development, project management. Like I mentioned earlier, if you really like getting people in line, like keeping deadlines and making sure like the project keeps moving along, project manager, if you really like the technology side of things, LMS manager, you've got that. You've got curriculum, you've got content management. If you like curating content curator. So yeah, technology, L&D technology.
Great advice. And I won't force you to list them all because I think we could go on for like 5 hours. But I think it just speaks to the breadth of the field out there. Like, for example, my first title in the field was Platform Support Specialist. And what does that mean? So sometimes it's searching for titles, sometimes for keywords. And again, like I think use your network to find out what roles they have, find out if they do things that you like.
That's great advice. Yes.
The next question here comes from also Mark C. I've heard that sometimes ID roles in academia expect you to be available after hours more often. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure about that one. We might have to tap the chat for that. In my experience, I have not experienced that, but I do also do a lot of contract work. So I actually do work a lot of off hours, right? I have a daughter who's super active in cheer and track. So sometimes I just need to leave during the day. And I find that I work when is best for me. And so I do that, but I have that flexibility. So maybe there's someone in the chat who can offer a better answer.
Yeah, please let us know if you have academia or higher ed experience. I'll say when I was working more in like training and faculty development, I worked the most reasonable schedule ever. Corporate has been a different world, but that's why I'm looking for a better fit. So it really does depend, I think, on the institution, but very good questions to ask during interviews if you progress to that stage. We'll see if anyone chimes in the chat as well with their own insights. The next question comes from me. What is the biggest or most memorable challenge that you've overcome in finding your jam in L&D, Laine?
That's such a good question. And I always come back to this story because it had a very big impact on me. My first role, I worked with a very difficult, what was termed difficult subject matter expert. And it was really hard to tie him down in terms of where we were going, like where's the roadmap? Like what is the goal here with this course? Because he was all over the place and he wanted to put everything in the course. And of course, you can't do that. So he was quite a challenge. And my mentor at the time, he said, this is the most difficult SME you'll ever work with. And I thought, wow, okay, that's good to know. And so it kind of really, at the time, it was very stressful. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I look at that and I say, wow, that really taught me a lot. That I really do enjoy working with subject matter experts. And I enjoy taking part in that passion that they have for their subject matter. And so that actually did help me find my jam, to be honest.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. And I love how you said, they're so passionate. They want to include it all. And it's kind of, part of our job to say, okay, but this is a beginner. All of it is going to go over their head. So what's essential for when you're getting started, or what's the one or two most important things? like really working with them to prioritize is a skill that I think we need to learn.
It's a little dance, right? Because we can tell them those things, but it depends on your delivery too. So I feel like what's really important is building that rapport, and having that relationship. Get that established first, and then you can kind of have some of those conversations that might be a little difficult.
Yeah, that element of trust is so key. I'm really glad you mentioned that. The last question that we have for now in the Q&A box. Oh, there's one more. Keep them coming, folks. We'll go as long as we can. From Adam, can you please define the roles you mentioned on the last slide? I forget what that refers to.
Oh, you want me to define the roles? Okay. So we have training and facilitation, and that a lot of times you'll find called instructor-led training, ILT. So if you maybe are a subject matter expert in that particular area, you might deliver some training. A contract that I'm working on right now is technical accounting software. And so there are subject matter experts who really understand how this software works. And so they deliver, so they're the subject matter expert, and they're also the facilitator and the trainer. And so they work with companies to, teach them how to use it for their purposes. So that's training and facilitation. We have LMS Manager, which is learning management system. And that is, earlier I talked about how courses get uploaded into certain programs that you can, depending on what kind you have, right? You can track data about the learner, their experience, their courses. You can, find out, get feedback from them. So a lot of different things there. Curriculum design, that is where you're designing like the coursework, starting from the beginning, hopefully with a needs analysis and understanding like why you're doing this, right? But we don't always come in that early. Sometimes we come in after like the needs analysis has been done. But then you design like the content and the mapping. Sometimes it's multiple courses. And so you kind of like structure that whole thing. Change management is when organizations are experiencing a large change. Maybe they are going to bring in a new software. Maybe they're going to have some changes to like their processes, big changes, and they need help with their people, sometimes their clients as well, accepting this change and understanding like what is going to happen after the fact, right? They need to manage that uncertainty. So you have change management. Enablement is like a lot of times you'll hear sales enablement, and that's giving people what they need so that they can go out and sell the product, right? Making them like really comfortable with how it works and like what the customer needs. And so it's really just another form of training. And onboarding is when someone joins the company, they have onboarding training. And so that is bringing them on and getting them acquainted and comfortable with the culture and, how we do things here. And, meet your team. Here's where all the files are on the Google Drive and things like that. That's onboarding. Those were the 6 ones that I had on my slide.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me see what the next question is here. How much, from Mark P, how much or how often does work in L&D crossover or hold hands, I love that phrase, with organizational development?
Yeah, that's an excellent way to say that. So I think it depends on the organization. And from my experience, really.
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Do you mind if we covered this one that's on the screen instead? Can you provide any insight on working in L&D internally with an org versus as a consultant? Any key differences, pros, cons? And then we'll tackle the crossover question.
Yeah, working L&D internally versus as a consultant. I think when you work internally, a lot of times you have like that employee mindset where you, I don't want to say they own your time, but they kind of do. You know, you're really working toward their goals and what they have deemed as important, what they what the company as a whole has decided strategically wise that you're focusing on. You're kind of just, you know, it's like a top down kind of thing. As a consultant, you're not really an employee of the company. You're more seen as an outside resource that they can bring in and use your whatever expertise that you have that you focus on, and they can use that to help them make decisions internally on how they want to change and do things. So I hope that answers that question. I feel like one internally, it's more of like an employee, whereas the other one, it's more seen as like partnership, you know, like consultant type of partnership.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And, you know, one detail that I might add is sometimes it also impacts which resources you have access to. Like if you're internal, you can maybe talk to some of the potential learners, but if you're a consultant, you maybe have to take what the SMEs or the client are telling you about the target audience. The next question here, my goof from earlier, from Mark, also from Mark, is how much or how often does work in L&D crossover or hold hands with organizational development?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so again, I think we should tap the chat and see if anyone has some really good expertise in that area. Because in my experience, rather, I haven't really seen much crossover, but I have heard and I have read, you know, others' experiences on LinkedIn and just different articles and things. So if anyone has some advice, wisdom to share, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, Bobby has shared in the chat, there should be crossover, but most orgs aren't set up for that. Yeah, I've experienced that challenge myself. Thanks for sharing that, Bobby. And while we have a little bit of a lull in the Q&A, I think we've tackled all the ones that have been asked so far. I wanted to ask Laine if you're available for a table session after this, if folks have more questions for you, if they want to continue to chat about this topic. Absolutely zero pressure, but I thought I would ask to see if you're available.
Sure, I would love to.
Amazing.
Yeah, my daughter got a ride to her cheer practice today, so I'm good. I'm good for another hour.
Yeah, so if anyone would love to keep this conversation going with Laine and other folks in this session, feel free to hop over to that table later and let us know in the chat if you need any help navigating to that space or have questions about it.
Awesome.
There is one more question there's one more question that just popped up from Karen. Thanks for the presentation. Wondering if there's a resource to find about the types of jams in ID so I can see where my jam fits in.
I love that question, Karen. I am going to point you to Sarah Canistra. If you just, you know, do a little search for her on LinkedIn, she has done so much research and she has a lot of content around that. So I would definitely recommend that. But of course, you know, you can also do your own research and just look up some of those terms, right? Learning and development. And you can say, what are some roles and subfields of learning and development? And, you know, see what comes up. Follow the, what is it, rabbit trail? Go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So about the table sessions, Bobby is asking, is this through the lounge area? I think yes. Someone will let me know if I am wrong in that answer. And then Bobby was also wondering if you would like to join tables. I mean, that would be a powerhouse of a table right there. No pressure to guide you towards answering a specific way.
No, I'd love to. Yep. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so you can find Laine and Bobby's table in the lounge after the session wraps up.
I'll look for it. I'll find it.
Daphne has added to the Q&A that she's got a great doc, which might be Sarah Canistra, called 50 plus L&D roles plus top skills needed to land them. So feel free to jot that down, copy paste it, Google it so you can find that resource.
That's a really good one. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Daphne.
Excellent. And if you follow Daphne Riley on LinkedIn, she is happy to send the PDF over on LinkedIn.
Very good.
All right. Can I get a few more applauses and thank yous for this amazing session and for Laine in the chat and in emoji reactions? It was so amazing. Thank you so much, Laine. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much, Leah. Thank you. And thank you to everybody. I had a really good time. Thank you.
Awesome. I think I will pass it over to Luis to close us out then.